everyone. Today we are going to take the next life process, that is respiration. In my previous video I took up the process of nutrition, and now we are moving on with the next process, that is respiration. Now respiration is not a new word for you all, but some children, they confuse it with breathing. Breathing is a different process. Breathing means inhaling and exhaling, taking in of oxygen and giving out carbon dioxide. That is simple breathing. While respiration, it is a little complex process which involves breathing also, along with the oxidation of food. So, how to define respiration then? Respiration is a process of acquiring oxygen from outside the body, that is from the environment, to break down the food sources for cellular needs. So it is a little complex process which includes breathing as well as oxidation of digested food in order to release energy. So breathing means only inhaling and exhaling. We take in oxygen, give out carbon dioxide, and we can prove this with the help of an experiment also. We take lime water in 2 test tubes, right? In one test tube, we try to exhale out. We blow out air in that lime water using a delivery tube or a simple pipe. In the other one, we take a syringe in which air is filled and we empty that syringe in the lime water. We will observe that the test tube in which we had exhaled out, that turns the lime water milky faster than the other one in which atmospheric carbon dioxide was passed. That means when we exhale out, we are exhaling out lots of carbon dioxide, which helps to turn lime water milky. In the other experiment, we can also take some sugar syrup and add some yeast granules to it and fix a rubber stopper over it, having a hole in it through which we can pass delivery tube into the lime water. After some time, we will see that the lime water starts turning milky. That is, even the yeast, when they respire, that is in the absence of oxygen, they also release out carbon dioxide. So during the process of breathing as well as during the process of respiration, carbon dioxide is released out, right? So in breathing, but in respiration, what else is happening? Of course, breathing is taking place, but along with it, amount of energy is also being released, and that is released by the oxidation of food that is present inside the cell. Oxidation. Oxidation means adding of oxygen. So when we add oxygen to the glucose, that is the food, you know, you have learned in the process of nutrition that the food, it turns the carbohydrates, they turn into glucose, and that glucose through the blood passes on to the various cells and tissues. So this glucose which is present inside the cells, that will get oxidized. That is, oxygen will be added to it, and as a result energy will be released. So this respiration, it is mainly of 2 types. Aerobic respiration and anaerobic respiration. Aerobic means which takes place in the presence of oxygen, and anaerobic respiration taking place in the absence of oxygen, right? So these are the 2 ways some organisms, they break down the glucose in presence of oxygen, while the others, they do not involve oxygen. So that is how aerobic respiration and anaerobic respiration takes place. So the main purpose is breakdown of glucose. So this breakdown of glucose, it takes place by various pathways. But whether it is in the presence of oxygen or it is in the absence of oxygen, the first step remains the same. The first step is the breakdown of glucose, which is a 6 carbon molecules, that is C6H12O6. So C6, glucose is a 6 carbon molecule. It turns into pyruvate, which is a 3 carbon molecule. So what is pyruvate? It is a 3 carbon molecule, right? And this change always takes place in cytoplasm, inside the cell. It is known as glycolysis, that is turning of 6 carbon glucose into 3 carbon pyruvate in the cytoplasm. So this process is called glycolysis. This first step remains the same for aerobic respiration also and anaerobic respiration also. Now, if it is taking place in the absence of oxygen, see I have written here minus O2. That is when oxygen is not present, as in case of yeast. I told you just an experiment also about yeast. So what will be formed? Ethanol plus carbon dioxide plus energy. Ethanol is a 2 carbon compound, right? And alcohol, that is ethanol, is formed. In case of lack of oxygen. Now, lack of oxygen means there is a limited supply of oxygen. It is not completely absent as in our muscle cells. Now, in our muscle cells, when it happens, suppose we have done some very vigorous exercise. Suppose you've run a race. What happens when you run a race and you finish the race? You start like breathing very heavily, right? You have to work hard to get in oxygen. Why that happens? Because the oxygen which was present in our muscle cells, that has been used up. That has been used up very fast. So now there is lack of oxygen or limited supply of oxygen in the muscles. And what happens in this case when there is lack of oxygen? A 3 carbon compound called lactic acid is produced in the muscles. Lactic acid plus some amount of energy is released during this process. But that energy is very less. In case of absence of oxygen also, the energy released is only 2 ATP, very less in amount. So this lactic acid, it gets accumulated in our muscle cells, and that causes cramps in the muscles. We get cramps, right? Why? Our legs start paining after we have run a race, or we have climbed a mountain, or we pick up something very heavy. Our muscles start paining in the arms. Why? Because at that time lactic acid gets accumulated, and when we give it a hot water massage or hot oil massage, again the blood circulation becomes normal and the lactic acid gets dissolved and we feel relaxed, right? But when there is accumulation of lactic acid, our muscles pain, we get cramps in our muscles. That is due to the presence of lactic acid. Next is when there is, the respiration takes place in presence of oxygen, or the breakdown of pyruvate takes place in presence of oxygen. It takes place in mitochondria. Last year in class 9 you read about the cell organelles, and you read that mitochondria is known as the powerhouse of the cell because it stores energy, right? So this takes place in the mitochondria, and as a result carbon dioxide plus water plus energy is released. Like when we respire, the oxygen goes in the in our cells, and it takes place, this breakdown of pyruvate will take place in mitochondria of the cells, and we will release out carbon dioxide plus water plus energy, which is 38 ATP. Comparatively, it is quite a large amount as compared to what? When it was released in the absence of oxygen. So here 38 ATP molecules of energy are released. And this ATP, as soon as it is released, it breaks down and is used up for the endothermic processes which are going on inside our body cells. Right? This ATP, it is known as the energy currency of the cell. This is the energy currency for most of the cellular processes taking place in our body. And how this is formed? The ADP. ATP is adenosine triphosphate. ADP is adenosine diphosphate. So this ADP along with the phosphate molecule in the presence of the energy which is released here will form the ATP molecule. Right? This is how ATP molecule is formed. So this ATP will be used up. Right? Now in plants also, what happens? You know that exchange of gases takes place during the process of photosynthesis. What happens during the daytime? The plants, they take in carbon dioxide and release out oxygen, which is very, very important for us to respire. Right? But at night time, what happens when no photosynthesis is taking place? At that time, the carbon dioxide which was stored in the plants, the extra carbon dioxide, that will be released out because no photosynthesis is taking place at night time. So the carbon dioxide will not be utilized for the process of photosynthesis. So at that time, whatever extra carbon dioxide is present in the plants, that is released out. That is why it is said it is not good to sleep under the tree during night time. Why? Because plants, they release lots of carbon dioxide during the night time. So the environment near the trees, near the plants, that has more of carbon dioxide. So that is why it is not good to sleep under the trees. Right? So this is what happens during the night time. And in case of aquatic organisms, what happens? The oxygen, it remains dissolved in water. So this dissolved oxygen is quite less in amount as compared to the oxygen which is present in the air. So lots and lots of oxygen has to be taken in. You must have seen the fish in the aquarium. If you have observed, the fish keep on opening its mouth again and again, again and again. Why? Because it has to take in that dissolved oxygen, which is very less in amount in water. So it takes in more and more water inside. And what happens? When it takes in water, that water will pass over the gills. You know, the fish, they use their gills for respiration, for breathing. So when that water will pass over the gills, the blood vessels which are present under the gills, they will take in the oxygen. Right? The blood will absorb all the oxygen which is present in the water. So that is why aquatic organisms, they need in more and more oxygen as compared to the terrestrial organisms. Right? Next, about human beings. About human beings, now we will take up in the next video. Today we have taken about respiration, its comparison with breathing, how it is different from breathing, the two types of respiration, that is aerobic and anaerobic respiration, and how the breakdown of glucose takes place in different conditions, that is in the absence of oxygen, lack of oxygen, presence of oxygen. Then how the plants, they respire, and how the aquatic organisms respire. So next video, now we'll take up how respiration occurs in human beings. Till then, Stay safe. Thank you.